I came home early from a work trip and found my wife pouring wine for another man in our kitchen. She froze. You're supposed to be gone. I set my suitcase down. I was. Then I looked at him and said, Now I know who's been sleeping in my bed. What she didn't know was I'd already prepared my exit. The first thing that made me suspicious wasn't a text message. It was the sheets. I had changed them before leaving for a 3-night trip. When I came home, they had been washed again. Not straightened. Washed. I noticed because the detergent smell was stronger than usual. I was still unpacking when Lydia walked past the bedroom. Did you wash the sheets? She stopped. Yeah. Why? I spilled something. What? She shrugged. Wine, I think. That was it. No nervous explanation. No long story. So I let it go. Lydia and I had been married for 8 years. We didn't have kids, and our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought it was stable. We argued about ordinary things. Money. Chores. How much time we actually spent together. I traveled a few times a month, usually for 2 or 3 nights, and Lydia had told me before that she hated how quiet the house felt when I was gone. I knew that. I tried to make up for it when I was home. We went out. We cooked together. We watched terrible shows either of us would admit we liked. Nothing about our life made me think she was building another one when I wasn't there. A couple of weeks after the sheets, I unloaded the dishwasher and found 2 wine glasses. That shouldn't have mattered. Except Lydia almost never used those when she was drinking alone. She had one ridiculous oversized stemless glass she'd owned forever. I teased her about it constantly. If she had wine by herself, she used that glass. Always. I stared at the 2 glasses for a few seconds. Then I put them away. Maybe a friend had visited. People were allowed to come over. It wasn't evidence. Then I found the sock. It was behind a chair in our bedroom. Black. Men's. Definitely not mine. I bought the same socks every time. This one was a different brand and a different size. Lydia was passing the room when I held it up. Whose is this? She barely looked at it. Probably yours. It isn't. She took it, checked it for maybe 2 seconds, then shrugged. Maybe it got mixed into our laundry. I stared at her. Our laundry? Yes. From where? I don't know, Shane. She already sounded irritated. We wash our clothes here. Then maybe it's old. It's not mine. I don't know what you want me to say. She tossed it onto the dresser and walked away. That should have been the moment I pushed harder. Instead, I stood there trying to invent an explanation for her. Maybe somebody had left it after a gathering. Maybe it had somehow ended up in something we brought home. Maybe I had forgotten owning it. None of those explanations made sense. But accusing your wife of cheating is easy when you're imagining what you would do. It's different when the accusation might destroy the life you wake up to every morning. So I accepted an answer I didn't believe. Then my neighbor accidentally confirmed I wasn't imagining things. I had just come home with groceries when he called to me from his driveway. Hey, Shane. Lydia's brother staying with you guys? I stopped. What? He nodded toward our house. Her brother. The guy who's been around. Lydia doesn't have a brother. I set one of the grocery bags down. She doesn't have a brother. His expression changed immediately. Oh. What guy? He suddenly looked uncomfortable. I don't know. I just assumed he was family. When have you seen him? A few times. When? He hesitated. Mostly when you're away, I guess. My stomach dropped. What does he drive? He described a dark blue sedan. I asked how many times he had seen it. 3. Maybe 4. He couldn't remember exactly. Then he started apologizing, saying he wasn't trying to interfere. I told him he hadn't done anything wrong. I carried the groceries inside. Lydia was in the kitchen. She smiled when she saw me. Did you get the coffee? Yeah. I put it on the counter. She started unpacking the bags while talking about something she wanted us to do that weekend. I barely heard her. I was thinking about a man parking in my driveway when I wasn't home. A man my neighbor had seen enough times to assume he belonged there. I wanted to ask her immediately. Who is he? Instead, I said I needed a shower. That night, Lydia slept beside me. I barely slept at all. The sheets. The glasses. The sock. The questions about exactly when I would be home. The calls she sometimes didn't answer until later. All those small things I had dismissed suddenly looked different. The next morning, I still didn't confront her. Maybe some people will judge me for that. I understand. But I knew if I accused her, and she denied everything, there was still a part of me that might let her talk me out of what I was seeing. I needed certainty. We shared a phone account, so I checked the call records. One number appeared over and over. Not constantly. Carefully. Calls in the evening. Messages during the day. Longer conversations when I was away. I went back several months. Same number. I looked it up. Darren. I knew him. Not well. That somehow made it worse. He was connected to one of our wider friend groups. I had met him twice. The second time had been at our house during a barbecue. He stood in my backyard drinking one of my beers. He laughed with me. Before leaving, he shook my hand. I sat at the kitchen table staring at his profile. Then I found a picture where his car was visible. Dark blue sedan. Same description my neighbor had given me. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually Lydia texted me from the other room. Pizza tonight? I looked at her message. Then at Darren's picture. Then I typed, sure. That was the beginning of the 3 weeks Lydia would later accuse me of using against her. I wasn't planning some dramatic revenge. I was trying to figure out what happened if my marriage ended. Our finances were mixed. We owned the house together. Important paperwork was scattered between drawers and folders. I had sentimental things in the house I couldn't replace. So I spoke to a lawyer. I explained what I suspected. The advice was simple. Don't empty shared accounts. Don't destroy anything. Don't change the locks. Don't threaten anyone. Document the finances. Protect important personal belongings. Think before acting. That conversation helped because it turned panic into a list of things I could actually do. I opened a separate bank account and redirected my paycheck there. I didn't take Lydia's money. I didn't drain anything we shared. I continued covering my normal part of the household expenses. I copied mortgage documents, tax records, insurance information, and anything else I might need. Then I took my grandfather's watch to my sister's place. It was one of the few things I owned that mattered to me for reasons that had nothing to do with money. She looked at the box. What's going on? I just need you to keep this for me. For how long? I don't know. She studied my face. Are you okay? I almost said yes. Instead I said, not really. She didn't push. Over the next couple of weeks, I moved a few clothes there too. A jacket. A couple of shirts. Shoes. Nothing obvious. Then I went home every night and acted normal. That was the hardest part. Because Lydia still behaved like my wife. She asked how my day went. She complained when I left cabinets open. She sent me videos she thought were funny. She made dinner. One night we stood beside each other in the kitchen while she tasted pasta sauce. She held the spoon toward me. Needs anything? I tasted it. A little salt. 10 minutes later, we were eating across from each other. And I wondered whether Darren had sat in my chair. That thought followed me everywhere. The kitchen. The couch. The bedroom. Especially the bedroom. One evening Lydia finally noticed something was wrong. You've been distant lately. I kept my eyes on the television. I'm tired. You're always tired. Work's been busy. She sighed. You bring too much of it home. For 1 second, I almost apologized. That still gets me. I almost apologized for being emotionally distant, while I was quietly trying to confirm whether another man had been inside our house. Instead I said, I'll try to relax. She put her hand on my shoulder. I sat there completely still. By the end of the 3rd week, I knew I couldn't keep living like that. I had a trip scheduled from Thursday through Saturday. That gave me my opportunity. I changed my plans without telling Lydia. Wednesday night, I packed my suitcase in front of her. She was sitting on the bed. What time are you leaving tomorrow? Around 2. When will you be back? Saturday afternoon. She nodded. Thursday. I kissed her goodbye. She said, text me when you get there. I will. I put the suitcase in the car and drove away. I went to my sister's place. By then, she knew enough to understand what I was doing. She looked worried when I told her my plan. Do you really want to catch them? No. Then why go back? Because if I don't see it myself, I'll spend months wondering if I was wrong. She didn't argue. I had asked my neighbor for one favor. If the dark blue car appeared again, text me. Around 7, my phone buzzed. Car is there. That was all it said. I read it twice. My hands started shaking. My sister stood. Do you want me to come with you? No. Are you sure? I need to do this myself. The drive home felt much longer than it actually was. At one point, I thought about turning around. I already knew enough. Maybe seeing them together wouldn't give me anything I didn't already have. But I also knew what would happen if I didn't. Lydia would give me another explanation. And some part of me might still want to believe it. So I kept driving. The dark blue sedan was in my driveway. That was the moment everything became real. I pulled in behind it and turned off the engine. For a few seconds, I stayed in the car. I always imagined that if something like this happened to me, I would be furious. Instead, I felt cold. I got the suitcase from the trunk. By then, it wasn't really a work suitcase anymore. Most of what mattered to me had already been moved. That suitcase was for leaving. I unlocked the front door. I heard voices from the kitchen. I walked in. Lydia was pouring wine. Darren was leaning against the counter. She saw me first. Her face strained of color. You're supposed to be gone. I set my suitcase down. I was. Darren straightened. I looked at him. Then at Lydia. Now I know who's been sleeping in my bed. Nobody spoke. Darren reached for his jacket. Shane, I should probably. Yes. I pointed toward the door. You should. Lydia turned toward him. Darren. I looked at her. Don't. He didn't argue. He walked past me without making eye contact. The last time Darren left my house, he shook my hand. This time, he stared at the floor. The front door closed. Then it was just Lydia and me. She started crying almost immediately. Please let me explain. I asked one question. How long? Shane. How long? She looked down. 9 months. For some reason, hearing the number made me calmer. 9 months wasn't one terrible decision. It wasn't something that happened once and stopped. 9 months was a second life running beside our marriage. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Lydia stayed standing. She started explaining. She had been lonely. My travel had become harder on her than she had admitted. We had become disconnected. Darren started as someone she talked to. Then it became more. She said she never planned for it to continue. Then she said, I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at her. You brought him here. She wiped her face. I know. To our house. I know. I hesitated before asking the next question. Our bedroom? She didn't answer. That was enough. I stood. You let me come home and sleep in that bed. I'm sorry. That's why you kept washing the sheets. She closed her eyes. Shane, please. That part hit harder than I expected. Cheating anywhere would have hurt. But our house was supposed to belong to us. Instead, she had brought him into the rooms where our actual marriage happened. Then cleaned everything before I came home. Except eventually, something always got left behind. A glass. A sock. A car. Lydia said, I love you. I shook my head. Please don't say that right now. I do. You had 9 months to stop. I know. 9 months to tell me. I was scared. So was I. She looked confused. I reached for the suitcase. That was when she noticed it. What are you doing? Leaving. For tonight? No. She looked from me to the suitcase. Then her expression changed. You knew. I didn't answer. How long? 3 weeks. Her sadness turned into anger. You knew for 3 weeks? Yes. And you said nothing? No. You sat here every night pretending everything was normal? Yes. She stepped back. That's cruel. I stared at her. Cruel? You were setting me up. For what? This. She pointed toward the suitcase. You already planned to leave. I planned to be ready. You talked to someone, didn't you? I said nothing. A lawyer? Yes. Her face changed again. You planned all of this before giving me a chance to explain. You had 9 months to explain. That isn't the same thing. No. It isn't. She shook her head. So you lied to me too. That sentence got closer than anything else to making me lose my temper. But I didn't yell. I said, Sure. We can compare lies during the divorce. She went silent. That word finally made her understand. I wasn't threatening to sleep somewhere else for a few nights. I was leaving the marriage. She started crying again. You can't decide this tonight. I didn't. What does that mean? I've had 3 weeks to think. That makes it worse. Maybe. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. You didn't even give us a chance. I picked up the suitcase. You had 9 months. Then I walked toward the door. She followed. Please don't leave like this. I stopped. How would you like me to leave? She had no answer. So I left. The first night at my sister's place, Lydia called 11 times. Then came the messages. Please come home. We can fix this. I'll never see him again. We need counseling. I love you. Please don't throw away 8 years. That last one stayed on my screen for a long time. I typed, I'm not the one who threw them away. Then deleted it. The next morning, she called again. This time I answered. Where are you? I'm safe. Are you with your sister? Yes. Can I come there? No. Please. Not today. She started crying. Then she asked, Did you already talk to a lawyer? Yes. Silence. So you really planned everything? I planned enough to protect myself. I would never take everything from you. I didn't know what you would do. You know me. That sentence landed harder than she intended. I thought I did. She didn't respond. Over the next few weeks, Lydia tried almost everything. Counseling. Promises. Apologies. She insisted the affair had been about loneliness, not love. She said she understood why I was angry but couldn't understand why I wouldn't even try to save the marriage. Then I found out Darren had ended things with her almost immediately after I caught them. Apparently, being part of a secret relationship was easier for him than being expected to build a real one afterward. I'm not proud of the satisfaction I felt when I heard that. But I felt it. Lydia called me after it happened. At first I didn't know why. Then she told me Darren was gone. She sounded angry. Are you happy now? About what? You know. No. I don't. He ended it. I stayed quiet. Then she said, You sound like you're enjoying this. I could have denied it. Instead I said, Part of me probably is. That's horrible. Maybe. You want me to suffer? No. I want you to understand that I didn't cause what's happening now. She didn't answer. Soon our mutual friends started getting involved. Some supported me completely. Others thought I had handled everything badly. One told me affairs usually happen when a marriage is already damaged. I told him I was willing to admit our marriage had problems. What I wasn't willing to accept was that problems somehow made 9 months of lying inevitable. Another friend said my 3-week silence had been cold. You could have confronted her when you first found out. And then what? Talked. About whether the marriage could be saved. Exactly. I understood the point. But I also knew what those 3 weeks had done for me. They gave me enough distance to make decisions before the confrontation turned everything into chaos. That mattered. Eventually Lydia started telling people I had blindsided her. Her version was that I discovered the affair, quietly separated part of my finances, moved belongings, spoke to a lawyer, staged a work trip, caught her, and left without giving her a real chance to repair things. When you say it that way, it sounds calculated. It was. I'm not pretending otherwise. But for 9 months, Lydia controlled what I knew. Those 3 weeks were the first time I wasn't completely in the dark. We formally separated. Neither of us could comfortably buy the other out of the house, so we agreed to sell it. I expected that to feel like relief. It didn't. The first meeting with the real estate agent nearly broke me. The agent walked through the rooms talking about repairs and staging. I stood in the living room remembering our first night there. We had eaten takeout on the floor because most of our furniture hadn't arrived. I remembered the Christmas tree we bought too tall for the room. The mark beside the doorway from when I tried to move a cabinet alone. Sunday mornings? Arguments. Apologies. 8 years of ordinary life. I had spent weeks telling myself everything must have been fake. Standing there, I realized it wasn't. A lot of it had been real. So was the betrayal. Both things could be true. After the agent left, Lydia followed me outside. "Do you ever miss me?" The question caught me off guard. I could have lied. Instead I said, "Yes." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then why are we doing this?" I looked back toward the house. "Because missing you isn't the same as trusting you. I'm trying." "I know. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." I believed she meant it. That was the terrible part. But I didn't want that life. I didn't want to become someone who checked her phone. I didn't want every trip to become a test. I didn't want her spending years apologizing while I spent years deciding whether I believed her. I said, "I don't want the rest of our lives to be you proving something and me checking whether I believe you." She cried quietly. Neither of us said anything else. The house sold a few months later. Lydia moved in with her mother for a while. I rented a small apartment. The first night there, I had almost nothing. A mattress. A folding chair. 2 lamps. A few boxes. It should have felt depressing. Instead, I slept almost 9 hours. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up wondering what had happened while I was gone. Nothing in that apartment had a second meaning. A wine glass was just a glass. A sock was just a sock. Fresh sheets were just fresh sheets. That was enough. Last week, Lydia sent me a long message. It was different from the others. She apologized without asking me to come back. She admitted she had spent too much time criticizing how I reacted because it was easier than looking directly at what she had done. She apologized for Darren. For bringing him into the house. For lying about the sock. For making me question my own instincts. Then she wrote, "I understand why you left. I just wish you had confronted me the moment you knew. I deserved consequences, but I don't think I deserved 3 weeks of you pretending everything was normal while quietly planning to stop being my husband." I read that several times. My first reaction was anger. Then I started typing. I wrote that she had no right to complain about honesty. Deleted it. I wrote that 9 months was longer than 3 weeks. Deleted that too. I wrote that I needed time to protect myself. Then I erased everything. Because there was one part she was right about. I had pretended. I ate dinner with her. I kissed her goodbye. I told her I was tired when she noticed I was distant. I let her believe I was leaving for work. I kept what I knew from her because I needed time before the confrontation happened. That was calculated. I can admit that. I just don't regret it. She had 9 months to tell me the truth. I took 3 weeks to prepare for what the truth was going to cost me. That time gave me enough control to leave without making every decision while I was in shock. Maybe that was cold. I can live with that. What I couldn't live with was becoming a man who questioned every late arrival, every unanswered call, every unexplained detail. The divorce is moving forward now. We only speak when necessary. My grandfather's watch is back with me. I bought actual furniture for the apartment. I even bought new wine glasses. The first time I put them in the cabinet, I laughed. I don't hate Lydia. I don't want her life ruined. And Darren barely matters anymore. What matters is that I finally stopped arguing with my own instincts. For months, I kept choosing explanations because the truth felt too destructive. Once I knew, I needed time to make sure I could walk away without losing everything else with the marriage. Maybe a better husband would have confronted her immediately. Maybe someone else would have stayed and tried counseling. I didn't. For 9 months, my wife knew the truth about our marriage while I didn't. For 3 weeks, I knew something she didn't. I was leaving. So was I wrong for pretending I didn't know until I was ready to walk away, or after 9 months of lying, had my wife already lost the right to expect immediate honesty from me?